All right, guys, so it was just a couple days ago that we had Hurricane Helene smashing into the southern United States, where, as of right now, reportedly hundreds of people have been killed or are missing. It caused tens of billions of dollars in damages. You had entire communities that were just wiped off the map. And now, a few days later, we have another absolutely ginormous hurricane that is set, it looks like, to go straight through the center of Florida. So I got a couple clips here I want to show you guys, as well as some other images of what this hurricane is looking like. But to start off, we have the mayor of Tampa, who is giving, I think, as dire of a warning to the people living here as you could possibly imagine. Let's go ahead and listen to this clip.
Number one message to Tampa residents tonight.
The number one message, as it has been for several days now, is that you need to prepare, do whatever you need to do, and then get out of the evacuation zones, which now are evacuation zone A and B. And as we all have heard so many times now, you hide from the wind and run from the water. And we are talking about right now the possibility of a direct hit with 10 to 12 foot tidal surge. Put that in perspective, Hurricane Helene, which just left the Tampa Bay area a week ago, there was 6 foot storm surge, and that was literally devastating to so many in our coastal area. We have 126 miles of coast just in the city of Tampa. And so people need to be heeding that warning. And from the looks of traffic on all of our northbound highways, they're doing just that.
Yeah, we've seen how jammed up those highways are. I know a lot of the tolls have been suspended to help facilitate people getting out of there. What would you say to people tonight who are saying, you know what, I'm going to ride this out, I've ridden others out? What would you say to people who aren't heeding those evacuation orders?
Well, I can tell you right now that they may have done that in others. There's never been one like this. And this Helene was a wake-up call. This is literally catastrophic. And I can say without any dramatization whatsoever, if you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die.
Wow. I mean,
if you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, she says, you are going to die. I mean, holy shit, man. Now, looking at this map here in terms of the potential storm surge that could hit, it looks like directly into Tampa here in this purple area. But even in, places to the north and to the south of it, guys, a 10 to 15 foot storm surge. I mean, we're talking about more than, the entirety of the bottom floor of buildings being completely submerged in water. And this is unimaginable levels of destruction that we could be about to witness. By the way, it looks like the storm is potentially going to hit tonight. I think it's around 8 p.m. that it's projected to actually make landfall. Now, we also have some more imaging here, some video of people who are heeding these calls to evacuate. It's obviously, you have to also take into account that it's probably difficult for some people to leave. They may not have the resources. They may not have a vehicle that allows them to leave. I've heard from people that I know that live in the area that apparently there are issues with gas stations now, because obviously when you have a mass exodus of people like this, they're going to be, taking a lot of gas to run all of these different vehicles. But man, if you can get out of Florida, especially if you're in that Tampa area, get out now, like now. I mean, probably should have left a day or so ago, but this is looking to be pretty catastrophic, man. We also have this video. I've never seen a meteorologist cry over some kind of a weather event, but here we have John Morales. Not sure exactly who he works for here, but NBC6. And I mean, he almost breaks down into tears trying to explain how intense this storm is. Let's watch a little bit of this clip.
It's just an incredible hurricane. It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just horrific. Maximum sustained winds are 160 miles per hour, and it is just gaining strength in the Gulf of Mexico, where you can imagine the winds. I mean, the seas are just so incredibly hot. Record hot, as you might imagine. You know what's driving that. I don't need to tell you. Global warming, climate change, leading to this and becoming an increasing threat for the Yucatan, including Mérida and Progreso and other areas there.
So, I mean, again, when the weatherman is crying on TV, I think you should take it seriously, right? Now, he also adds in, I think, the important point that's being mostly left out of this conversation, which is climate change. Now, can you say 100% that, man-made climate change directly caused this hurricane to exist? No, not necessarily. But is it exacerbating the potential impacts of hurricanes like this? Is it potentially making them more powerful? Yeah. I mean, as you just pointed out there, we've had historic highs in terms of the ocean temperature in the Gulf of Mexico as well as in the Atlantic Ocean, and that can lead to more intense storms. It can lead to the storms, picking up speeds and picking up intensity much faster than they potentially otherwise would have, right? You also have the threat of rising sea level over time, which makes storm surges that much worse. Climate change, I mean, it's hard to say that it's not a pretty significant factor in this conversation, and this is the kind of shit that we're looking forward to in the future as our government continues to not really take the issue seriously. Now, we also have this here is posted by Ryan Hall, y'all, who has a great YouTube channel, by the way, if you want weather updates and, live coverage and everything like that. He's a great resource on YouTube, so go check out his channel. But he posted this map here and says that Hurricane Milton will be a Cat 5 soon and will continue to gain strength through tonight. The ceiling for this thing is mind-blowing. And again, you can see, I mean, this looks like it's just going to go straight through the center of Florida. And he says it's a Cat 5 soon. There are other reports that it's already hit a Cat 5. There are other reports that it hit a Cat 5, then lessened, and then became a Cat 5 again, right? Which basically never happens. We'll get to more of that here in a second. We also had this post here from Noah Bergen, who works as a meteorologist on Fox 35 Orlando down in Florida. He says, "This is nothing short of astronomical. I'm at a loss for words to meteorologically describe the storm's small I and intensity, 0.897 MB pressure with 180 mile per hour max sustained wind gusts and gusts of 200 miles per hour. So sustained 180 mile winds with 200 gusts. Jesus Christ." He says this is now the fourth strongest hurricane ever recorded by pressure on this side of the world. The eye is tiny at nearly 3.8 miles wide, and he says this hurricane is nearing the mathematical limit of what Earth's atmosphere over this ocean water can produce. We are reaching the mathematical limit for what is even hypothetically possible in terms of a hurricane's strength and pressure. Wow. Okay. Now we also have this. Here from Andrew Markowitz. He says the eye test alone tells me that this Milton is almost certainly going back up to a Category 5 intensity. Not many storms achieve Category 5, and even fewer do it twice. The only ones to do it multiple times in the Gulf of Mexico were Camille back in 1969. So we're talking about decade after decade since this has happened. It also happened with Allen in 1980, and then obviously Milton in 2024. So he's saying that it not only was a Category 5 storm, which is rare enough as it is, but that it was a Category 5, went down, and then became a Category 5 again. Now, I've also seen graphics like this floating around in terms of the potential evacuation areas. And, I mean, according to this map, it's basically get the fuck out of Florida. That's the evacuation plan, is do not go basically anywhere in the major population centers in Florida, except for maybe Miami down here. Now, we also have, of course, because we live in the United States, and so of course this is going to happen, we also have some Republicans who, some are floating conspiracies surrounding Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton in regards to weather manipulation. We'll get to some of that here in a minute. But we also have politicians like Lindsey Graham who take these kinds of situations and somehow spin it to be about Israel, right? You would think that would be impossible. How are we talking about a hurricane and its consequences and the aftermath of it, and how people in his own state are dying and are in need of desperate help, and then he turns it into an issue about Israel? Well, let's go ahead and watch and see how he pulls this one off here.
You can thank Donald Trump and Elon Musk for that.
I've been going all over South Carolina like most people. I hadn't slept much. But look what's going on in Israel. Our friends in Israel are surrounded by people that want to kill them, destroy them, a second Holocaust in the making. And Biden says be proportional. What is the proportional response to people who want to kill you and your family?
Now, do you guys notice what they did at Fox News here? Right? The conversation, they're showing images from Asheville, North Carolina, which was destroyed by Hurricane Helene. Obviously that's in North Carolina. He's from South Carolina, but, we're talking about people in his region, right? Americans who are in desperate need of help, okay, in the aftermath of this. And they're even showing the images on screen as a side-by-side, and then the Fox News producers behind the scenes, shout out to them, when they realize he's turning this into an issue about Israel and not Americans who are in desperate need of help, they cut that off and they go to a full screen so that he's not screaming about how much we need to send Israel more weapons while there's a side-by-side with American homes completely destroyed. I mean, you don't get a better, encapsulation here of how our government works. It's like any issue, regardless of whether it is. If there's a tornado, there's a hurricane, there's some other issue. Well, we got to send Israel billions of dollars. That's the answer. All right. Now, we also have, because there's been a lot of talk from, many conservatives about how the government isn't helping enough, right? How FEMA isn't helping enough, or some people say they're actually standing in the way of help. One thing I wanted to point out about that is that, number one, we've had previous votes in the past where Republicans have voted against increasing funding for FEMA, right? We also had just recently Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, Republican, saying there's no rush for Congress to approve hurricane relief. He says we'll be back in session immediately after the election. Huh? He was asked a question in an interview about sending Congress back to D.C. to go and vote on a piece of legislation to get emergency funding so that the government can provide relief to hurricane victims, right? Because they don't have enough funding, they don't have enough staff, they don't have enough resources. And he was asked about that, and he says, nah, we're going to wait until after the election. Guys, that's a month away from now. People need help right the fuck now. He's saying, no, we're going to stay on vacation. We're going to wait until after the November election to come back, and then maybe we'll think about doing something about it. Now, again, you look at many Republicans' previous track record, I don't know if we're going to be getting more funding for FEMA or for disaster relief, right? So there you have it, right? If you want somebody to yell at, I think guys like Mike Johnson and guys like Lindsey Graham would be number one and number two. Now, we also have, as I was saying earlier, some conspiracies floating around because, of course, it is, right? Now, these are just a couple examples here. I've seen the countless examples of this over the last couple of days, especially since Hurricane Helene. This shit has just taken off. Here we have Marjorie Taylor Greene. She says, climate change is the new COVID. Ask your government if the weather is manipulated or controlled. Did you ever give permission to them to do it? Are you paying for it? Of course you are. This is just one. She had many tweets similar to this, saying that these hurricanes are happening because the government, I guess more specifically like Joe Biden and Kamala, the Democrats, have like a weather manipulation machine that they are using to generate storms in the Gulf of Mexico and then to send them at Republican areas. Do we need to get into why this is fucking batshit insane? Do we even need to talk about the underlying logic of this? Is there any underlying logic of this? I mean, first of all, scientifically, technically, these kinds of things are not possible, right? As far as we know, maybe sometime in the future this could be possible that you could create and direct a hurricane. It also doesn't really make much sense just at a fundamental level in terms of the destruction, because many of the places that were destroyed were like Democrat strongholds in some of these states, right? They weren't exactly like hard right places. And not to mention the size and scope of these hurricanes is absolutely ginormous. It's going to obliterate everything in its path, right? The idea that like you have the technology, the Democrats have the technology to create a hurricane and to like specify exactly where it's going to go so we can take out these Republican places before the election. What are we doing, guys? What are we doing? Now, we also have another example of that here. Matt Wallace leading the charge on this. He says, rumors are circulating about the strange-looking NOAA data collection plane flight pattern through Hurricane Milton. Now, as pointed out here by the community notes, the NOAA is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which routinely flies missions around large storms to collect data to improve weather forecasts for hurricanes, tropical cyclones, and winter storms. The flight path is designed to refined to boost forecasting accuracy. So they're taking an example of a flight where the plane's going around trying to look at the storm to get, a better analysis of how this storm is going to play out. And they're saying what exactly? I don't even know what the fuck he's trying to claim here. That the plane created the hurricane? Is that what we're going with here? He also drops a video down here on Rumble saying Hurricane Milton just made another near impossible shift. Insanity. Share this video quickly before they take it down. All right, one final one here. We have a video that was posted here by Liz Churchill, 500,000 followers. Holy shit. And she posts a video here, which I guess is trying to imply that the hurricane is like changing paths rapidly and that it's targeting Florida. I don't really know where else she expected the hurricane to go, but there's another issue with this here, which is that this is from a video game. This is not even a real weather simulation. It's not a real forecast that she pulled from anywhere. It's a fucking video game from a TikTok post. I don't even know what to do at this point anymore. I mean, this got 4.8 million views on Twitter. Now, I guess that you could, you get the fact checks down here and hopefully people figure it out on their own. But the amount of this kind of shit that I've been seeing since Hurricane Helene hit has blown my mind. I mean, there are people saying that FEMA is out there with assault weapons, like shooting people. There are people who are saying that, the government created these hurricanes and that they're targeting Republican states ahead of the election. I think we've collectively lost it at this point. So anyways, moving on from the conspiracies, if you live in this area, if you live in Florida, especially if you're in the Tampa area, if you have the resources, if you have the capability to get out, because this shit looks absolutely terrifying based on every single, meteorologist, every single expert that I've read. This thing is going to be potentially historic, right? So absolutely terrifying, back-to-back, really intense hurricanes. And it would be cool if we could potentially think about doing something to avert the more catastrophic impacts of climate change moving forward.
Politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying